is this Send style of parkour, is this a good thing in our community?
Stomp your feet, beat your chest, breathe in through the nose to like, get the challenge done.
Dom actually has bad mental game.
Doing things at height, doing like scary, risky things. That is like the pinnacle of parkour. Not enough young female doing high level risky thing.
Parkour is scary and it's okay to feel afraid.
I actually wanted to start today addressing Dom's bail.
Which one?
The one that is apparently the second most viewed clip.
I heard it was actually third, but close enough. Whatever. It's
up there.
It's up there. It's super highly viewed video. Do we know how many views it has?
I'll check right now. You'll find it faster than I will. But yeah, the reason I felt like this was kind of worthy to, well, it's a parkour clip, and it is, in the top 3 of all clips ever to be put on Instagram. And Instagram might be the most viewed platform in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like one of the most popular pieces of media of our time. Top 3 popular pieces of media of our time.
I can't imagine that many people watching something that I do. And it's not even like my best work, 429 million views as of the time of this recording.
Saturday, the 22nd of June. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing because it's a bail. And he got hurt, but on the clip, it's also like he's so chill about it. Yeah. And it actually, I don't know when people watch it because so many of those views have to be like repeat, right?
Yeah.
And when people watch it, are they thinking, is the consensus like, oh, this is 100% reckless? I'm sure that's part of it. But is there also some consensus that, wow, I can't believe he like managed to like be okay with it? Like, are people thinking like of like the like ukemi aspect of it or whatever, where they're thinking it's impressive that he's like I put up air quotes for the listeners, not viewers.
I think it's so I think there is some element of like, holy crap, this was so crazy risky. It seems like worst case scenario happened, and he survived it. Not only did he survive it, but he like got up and was like, I'm okay. My shoulder kind of hurts, but
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like even I like rewatched it a bunch. Like it was just like playing over and over on my phone because I'm just like curious, like, oh, what went wrong here?
He talks about it in the caption.
Yeah.
And it's such a bizarre type of front flip challenge because the approach just seems so bad. And I wonder why he was drawn to that gap in particular with what looks like such a bad approach. Because typically, if you were going to do a gap like that, because it's big, you would want a more ideal approach. And I mean, Dom's really good at this type of thing, but...
Well, it makes... So based on his caption, he was saying like he ended up doing like a Webster takeoff, but he intended to do more like a dive takeoff. But I think what's so striking to me is I don't understand why he put one foot on the step up. Like that should have been... I think it probably would have been a better strategy to do like the side pre technique and have like a gather step on top of the step up, so have both feet taking off so he can dive more easily rather than like one-footed push.
Well, maybe he'll try again.
I don't know. I think that's kind of like a one and done kind of thing. And honestly, he got the attention. He probably got way more attention for the bail than he would have had he successfully made the gap.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reason why I chose the gap is because it was cool. Like it was really cool.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes you would, I think, write off a challenge based on like the other, like, oh, this. I guess the approach felt good enough, and yeah, he did do like a single leg step up, which would prompt more of a Webster takeoff.
Yeah.
So that was an oversight. But
yeah, I think in retrospect he should have taken off of 2 feet and probably used more of like a side flip takeoff variation. I think he would have been able to cover way more distance easily.
So I also
he'll come back from it and he probably got more followers as a result.
Yeah, and I also wanted to maybe like dig into that a bit of I'm curious what the aftermath in terms of attention is like for Dom.
Yeah.
And then I guess, like, does this mean anything for parkour? I'm assuming that your average viewer identifies it as parkour.
Yeah.
And is it like wholesale good or wholesale bad? I always used to like this to say this thing about, you know, parkour wanting to like have its cake and eat it too. And we want, most people in parkour want to see that. They want to see, you know, not if it ended up worse, if you like got like really seriously hurt. And I mean, like separating your shoulder is actually pretty serious. Like hopefully it doesn't take too long for him to recover it. But most people do want to see that kind of thing. But we also don't want people freaking out when they see us on the street looking like we're about to attempt that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder,
I think
where it puts us.
Putting it that way is really funny. Parkour wants to have its cake and eat it too, because it's like, for years, for like the last couple decades, we've been trying to fight for this. Like, parkour is not that dangerous. It's not that reckless. We actually have a lot of control. What you don't see is the thousands of hours of practice that go into each and every jump. You know, you're just seeing the extreme stuff, but really we're practicing this millions of times on the ground level until we can't miss. And it's like, well, yeah, no, parkour is actually kind of dangerous. And you can take parkour from like a very basic level to a very dangerous level. Mm-hmm. And it's all about what the practitioner decides to do. So it is in your hands how dangerous the level of risk you're accepting. And in this case, Dom was accepting a very high level of risk because he was doing a very high level risk move, and he miscalculated. And it just resulted in his fail and injury ultimately, and thank goodness he's okay. But it made me think of the video on Instagram that Mattma made. Did you watch that, where he was talking to camera about how like risk in parkour and what like regular people see it?
I think I only caught like a piece of this on someone's story, so I didn't actually click and watch the whole thing.
Yeah, you should watch it, because he actually breaks it down pretty well and talks about it. Because it's like, yeah, like why would you take risk like that? And one of the comments he makes about it is that, you know, people will say he's just doing this for likes and attention, and that's definitely not the case. It's just a byproduct of the pursuit of something that he's passionate about and finds meaningful in his life, right? So he's like
this is, you're talking about, that's Matt's personal reasoning.
No, he's just talking about parkour as a whole, or action sports actually as a whole. He's like, he's not talking about necessarily his personal. He's talking about like, why would any like people who don't do parkour or action sports, like why would anybody take these risks? And his argument is basically all of life, it has like some level of risk, and we just choose the type of risk that we want to take on, and that gives us some meaning that we derive in life. And there's a byproduct that happens as a result of taking risk, which is you might get views and attention and success.
I have a bit of a challenge to that take. that's a bit, it's more of like a current thing, because I think that is true up till a certain point with parkour, and I'm just going to say specifically parkour media, because when parkour media is montages of feats of achievement or singular clips of achievement, I would say that's true. But when it's like action comedy or playing to the camera or like Bob Reese doing a bit or like these kind of things, it is 100% for the likes and views. 100%. Like they're not, Bob Reese isn't making silly ass videos.
That's not what he's talking about.
No, I know he's not talking about that, but I do think that parkour like has with some, I'll say like parkour influencers, again air quotes, have slipped into that a bit, and it really starts to blur the lines. And I don't know what all of like Dom's motivations are, and I don't necessarily think it's entirely like stupid or wrong if some of his motivations are around attention.
No doubt he thrives on attention. He's the type of person that likes being the center of it.
Well, okay, so center of attention and doing something for the purpose of attention, I also think are different things. Because doing something for the purpose of attention, I mean attention like that you can leverage to make get sponsored and make a living, which he's done.
I think for Dom, I think it is a, there's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but I think the majority of his motivation is that he finds meaning in pursuing challenge, which I think that's the motivation for most people doing most things. And yeah, like, does it help him with motivation when people give him praise for it through likes or shares or just follower count going up? Of course. But I don't think that, like, if it was, if he was managing to, like, I don't know, draw stick figures and like that, he was just getting a lot of attention for his awesome stick figure drawings, he probably wouldn't generate as much meaning and derive as much meaning from that, because his passion is parkour. So like, it's the front flips that he likes doing that are then feeding into like, oh, I also happen to get attention from this, so that fuels me to do more. But I really like doing front flips to begin with. Yeah, and I haven't seen like Matt's video like explanation of it all, and I don't even know if I gave a very accurate representation of it, because I watched it like a week ago. So, and I only watched it once.
How long is it?
I think it's like a couple minutes of him talking about it. I was like,
can we pull it? Is it like a under 60-second Instagram clip we can pull up right now?
We could
talk about.
So what I'll do is I'll pull it up, and then if it's too long, we'll cut it. Okay.
Almost all freestyle sports involve this element of high risk. And it seems that is not accidental, but the danger is the very thing why people are doing some jumps or challenges. The public is often confronted with these clips, and the usual reaction is incomprehension. They are wondering, why would anyone voluntarily risk to lose their health or even life for such an unnecessary thing like a jump? And it's a good question, because the usual and probably reasonable motive is to preserve these, and so this kind of behavior is seen as something abnormal or dysfunctional. I would like to explain this a little bit, and I hope that those people will see this video, which is unlikely. First of all, I don't think that parkour people have to defend themselves for doing these kind of things if at the same time people are going to the moon and Mars or whatever. There seems to be something that makes humans want to push the boundaries more and more. Maybe it's just a problem that they can imagine more than they can actually do, and this sort of makes them feel imprisoned. Well, whatever it is, if you look at humanity as a whole, it doesn't really seem abnormal. It seems like the usual mode. Now, there might be several motives involved, and if you would ask parkour people or the sports people, they would probably give you all kind of noble reasons, whereas the public or outsiders would often suspect some not so noble motives, such as fame, attention, likes, admiration by others. And it's true that people doing these kind of risky things do get these to a certain degree. People are respected in the parkour community if they are having done insane things. But you need to consider this: before you can even do something which gains any attention by anyone, you will have to put in years and years and years of training. It's not that you can just decide, oh, let's get some admiration, I'm just gonna jump off that roof. So behind these crazy jumps, there's usually always a very passionate individual who has committed years and thousands of hours of training and acquiring a skill. To understand this whole phenomena a little bit better, we will need to look at the process behind these crazy jumps. In parkour, we call the scary part of it the mental game. The mental game basically starts at that point where you want to do something, but you can't because you're scared. And this is something that happens in parkour from the very beginning. Already in the first session, probably you are faced with some kind of fear, but not because you're on a rooftop, but because you're scared to hurt your toe, for example. So it starts on a very tiny, undangerous level. So from the very first session, you have to face fear all the time, and you will have to develop a strategy to overcome it. And I can't speak for everyone, but in general, how you overcome this fear is not through crazy willpower or some especially high courage, but rather you need to come to a certainty that you can do it successfully and safely. And people are doing all kinds of things to get to that inner conviction. You can often hear parkour people standing at a jump and they say, I can feel or I can see the jump. And so that means that their movement experience and their understanding of movement is kind of like an internal simulation. And when they see and feel the jump, if it's not covered, if they can't see it, they have to go about any measures to make them see it, or if it's not possible, to see that they can't do it. For example, they're looking for jumps that are similar but have less consequence, so they're not at height but at the floor, or they are counting distances, they're comparing it with other jumps they did, and all of this is gathering information to gain insight about the jump, to know what it is about, and then to see, okay, I can do it. So the mental battle is wrestling between the inner assurance that you can do something versus all kind of strong emotions, doubt and fear, and voices telling you what could go wrong and what will go wrong and you will not make it, and all of these kind of things. This mental battle is really a very intense thing, and sometimes it just feels horrible, like you can really hate it. So the whole mental process behind these crazy jumps is actually a very rational process, because you're trying to overrule emotions with your calculations or with your understanding of movement. And the very word rationality means calculating. And in parkour, you instantly feel the consequence when your calculation was off. It's interesting to see that in the past, parkour was rather conservative about risk-taking, and you were almost like judged for being injured or having had a fail or something like that. Nowadays, it's almost the opposite. You know, the sender mentality is something cool, something accepted. It has this cool image, you know, like, whoa, he's reckless, whoa, he just doesn't give a fuck, or she. To me, it seems some people try so desperately to be on the cool side that they are tempted to go a little bit too far beyond their calculation, and boom, injury. Ironically, if people do that and they fail and they get injured a lot, they are still seen as having a strong mental game. It's weak mental game. It's irrationality ruling you. If you love movement, why would you risk your ability to move? It can only be if people love their status more than movement itself, and that's when they start gambling. So you can see that your mental game is kind of threatened from two sides. The one side is saying you can't do it even though you could, but the other side is saying yes, you can do it even though you can't. And both sides are kind of off. Both sides is bad mental game, because the one gets tempted to not do something for irrational reasons, and the other side also gets tempted to do something for irrational reasons. Just that this side, of course, is way more dangerous. Well, if you ask me, everything in parkour needs to be a stick, so no overshooting, no undershooting, only then it's accurate. So you could say the challenge of the mental game is basically that your conception of a jump and the actual real jump are matching. And this precision, this perfect match, is really the beauty of the mental game. And the highest degree of testing this precision is in a place where there's no room for error. And it is hard to explain to other people why it is so deeply satisfying. Funnily, if you think about it this way, these crazy jumps require actually the exact opposite of craziness. If you think about craziness as your view of the world and the world being wholly different things and a huge gap in between, which I think would be a pretty accurate description of craziness. So that's it. Send responsibly.
Yeah, not much, I guess, like new in there really, in terms of like what we already were talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think he articulated the concept of the mental game super well.
Yeah, it was good. I agree with everything you're saying. Like, I don't think there was a single thing in there that I would contest. What I did want to say is that this is always going to be one of those things that's not a unique to parkour problem, and I would say not even unique to action sports. Someone that I have followed their media for a long time that has nothing to do with parkour, has everything to do with MMA, is Luke Thomas, for all the MMA nerds out there. He said
some bad things about parkour, though.
He has said some bad things about parkour.
So he loses a ton of respect for me in that regard.
I will listen to this guy sometimes, and he has some really, really great takes on the world of MMA, on the world of sports, even on life and stuff like that. But he also has some takes where I'm like, no, you're way off.
Big L takes on parkour.
And I think one of his bad takes actually comes from like this like self-preserving sort of thing. And I know it's actually we're entering into this phase, I think, with fitness and with lifestyle of longevity, which is a whole other thing. I know like this is something you're thinking about and everything too, and I think is on his mind as well. Speaking of Luke Thomas, but he'll say things about grappling, for example, about jiu-jitsu, and about how high-level jiu-jitsu players, like their fingers are messed up, and he's like, yeah, it's not really cool if you get to age 50 and you're walking around with a cane. It's not so cool anymore. And I just feel like this is it's just such a bad take, because there's so many things that can lead to a person being, I guess, compromised at a later age. It's something I'm constantly coming to terms with myself, because I didn't push my body so hard acutely doing parkour, which is what Matt's speaking about. I push my body really hard in a long-term sense. I've always trained a lot, and I've always tried to get as much as I could out of each session with like intensity and reps. And I've actually struggled with the mental game. I've struggled to get out of myself some of the cool things that I think I'd be able to do. But I'm not like in a space of regret, and I'm not really changing much in terms of what I do. I try to make some like smarter decisions here or there now, but I'm not really changing my approach. And I think it's an unfortunate mistake to be so judgmental and negative to people that do make that choice. That do make the choice of like, this is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And it's not in no way is it bothering anybody. That I'm choosing to maybe shorten the health span of my joints or whatever, because I'm just trying to get everything that I can out of myself still to this day. Because I actually realized for me that window's shorter, and some people are able to stretch it, they're able to prolong it. You look at people like William Bell, right, who did a lot of like the Send type stuff with the Yamakasi, probably also a lot of like over training or like high intensity training through a long period of time, and then kind of took a break into more of like a climbing style of thing, and now he's back in his mid 40s doing like big he can still do it
again. Yeah.
And I look at that and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be doing that in my 40s. It would be cool. It would certainly be cool because
you're not far away from your 40s.
Yeah, exactly. Like in like mid 40s, and it'd be cool. But I also realized that I could start one week where all of a sudden it's like, oh, this this feeling, this sensation I'm getting in my knee seems to be getting a little worse, and it's starting to get prolonged, and I may need to have some sort of intervention with it or something. Who knows? It's just, I don't know. It's something that I'm actually having trouble like articulating even now too, like this whole sense of like longevity. So
to bring it back to Matthias's video, he kind of starts it off talking about how like humans go to the moon. And that like, of course that's a risky.
Yeah. The void, the unknown.
Yeah. It's so risky. Like the first people to go to the moon. It's like, are you serious? Like, is that really the smart thing to do? The way to prolong your life is to take this massive risk to go somewhere no one has ever gone before, or to explore like the deep oceans, or to try to climb Everest or whatever. There's so many different examples of people kind of pushing the limits of humanity, and I think he articulated that well in that. If we all choose the like, I'm going to be cautious and choose to like not take risks so that I can live as long as we can, we might be able to live a long time. We also might just die because we get hit by a bus, or like we might, and ultimately we end up having a less fulfilling, less meaningful life because we're not taking the risks. And ultimately society in general, humanity in general, doesn't advance forward in whatever discipline or degree, right? If we choose, hey, you know what, maybe let's not go to the moon because it's kind of risky, people could die, let's just stay here on our little earth, let's not explore the oceans, let's not explore the mountains, let's just be safe. If we don't explore, if we don't continue to push humanity forward, future generations suffer, right? Because they're just not capable of the same level of technology or innovation or physical ability as prior or as we could potentially get to. So I think that's a really good point. What I find super interesting is that he articulated the idea that in the past, parkour culture was way more conservative, and that it was like looked down upon or frowned upon if you got injured even, or failed, or if you were deemed reckless in any way.
We're speaking about like maybe to 2004 era to 2010 era.
Yeah.
Could probably stretch a little bit later than that.
Yeah, could be. But now things have progressed to the point where, and I don't know if this is a good thing, but send mentality is really cool. And it ties in a lot with what we're talking about with Dom here, is that he actually articulated what potentially could be something that's a problem, which is Dom actually has bad mental game.
Okay, should I re-explain? Yeah.
He's saying that so some people might have bad mental game because they can't get themselves to do things that they physically can do. But there's other people who have bad mental game in that they are frequently doing things that they actually can't do. Or they're redlining too much. And really, like he says, everything should be a stick in parkour, right? No over or undershooting. And that's like a perfect analogy, because that's like just a physical expression of it. But you need to apply the same to your mental game. The goal is to have a mental game that is perfect sticks all the time, or at least controlled failures, right?
The stick being symbolic of control.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's really interesting, because I think everyone views Dom as having a really strong mental game, but I think Mateus's point here is that this could be a reflection of actually poor mental game, because if he's routinely doing these things, because it's not just this bail that we're talking about across the front gap, but he also in the new Capst1 video does a vortex front and like really under rotated it basically and hit.
Wait, you were asking me which bail?
Yeah, exactly.
At the start of the program, so.
Exactly. And that's not the only example. There's more, right? And this isn't necessarily a criticism of Dom as much as it's just a mental exercise of like, what is this send mentality actually, or is the send approach to parkour actually just overestimating ability and not being precise, as Mateus articulated in that video?
Yeah. So I had the privilege one time of being on Dom's was it a podcast that he was doing?
Yeah. Catch up.
Yeah,
Catch up.
I think that's the thing that
which
it was
is
called.
hilarious.
That I was on was called. And it's funny because he clearly had this formula where he was trying to ask me questions, and I kept trying to ask him questions.
Yeah.
So like, I was trying to make it a better show. Anyways, I asked him like to kind of define send, and I'm not gonna quote him, but the takeaway that I got was there has to be some sort of like part of the challenge that you're like not sure about, like you're trusting in your abilities, but there is like an unknown.
There's still some level of unknown. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think if you do parkour long enough and you push yourself long enough, you'll find moments like that. And again, there's going to be a whole spectrum or a whole scale of what that looks like depending on the person, because like my like relative unknown is different than Dom's relative unknown, for example. But it's the idea of like, okay, I'm trying to think of an example that would be like everyone could understand. And it's like, all right, you come across a wall that has a different texture and maybe like it even like wobbles a bit. It has some movement to it. And let's say this wall is actually your takeoff, and maybe there's not actually quite enough room for your feet. Like your heels are up against something, and so your toes are a little bit more off the edge than they normally are. But realistically, if you brought this down to ground level, you'd be like, yeah, I can get full power off this, right? But it just feels like a little bit off. And there's a jump you're trying to do, and the jump is like, 90 to 100% of your maximum. So it's like, it's in there, like you can definitely hit it, but because you have to go full effort and because your takeoff is a little weird, that would be a send.
Yeah.
Because there's enough of that you're not quite sure, but then you start looking at the variables of what happens if you don't make it. Okay, can my feet hit the wall? Like, my feet definitely gonna hit the wall? Yes, they're definitely gonna hit the wall. Okay, cool. So I can do a bounce back. I can splat it. I have all these outs, right? And so it makes it your calculations can make you have enough reason to attempt it. But that's the send.
Yeah.
I think. I think he would agree.
Well, so I've always thought of the goal of parkour challenges is to reduce the level of uncertainty, and so to take whatever progressions or data that you can gather from the situation to minimize the amount of uncertainty, because that will enable you to close the gap, so to speak. And allow you to commit to the jump easier. And I always thought Dylan Baker's take on this was really interesting, because he basically broke it down to like, do you have trust in the surfaces that you're using? Which is kind of what you alluded to. Which is like, is the wall wobbly, or is it wet, or is there a layer of dust or whatever? So if you can trust the surface, then that's one layer of uncertainty that you've kind of taken away. The other is like trust in your ability to do the thing. Like, how much experience with the Kong precision do you have? Is this a new move to you, or is it like, oh, you've dialed this in pretty well at ground level? And then the third is trust in your ability to execute a plan B. So if something went wrong, if you undershot, are you like confident doing a bounce back? If you overshoot, are you confident with like your ability to save the overshoot, whatever the circumstances? And so all of those factors, like your ability, your level of ability, and your understanding of your level of ability, your understanding of your level of ability with the plan B option, or C or D, and then your confidence in the surfaces. If you can reduce the uncertainty on all of those three levels, then you have the precise amount of mental understanding and you have the right amount of data to be able to commit to the jump. And whether you make it or not, at least you should have the ability to save yourself and be okay. And it sounds like with Dom, he's willing to accept more uncertainty.
Yes. Yeah.
For to get himself to send, which is very interesting. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but in doing so, he is definitely accepting a much higher level of danger than most people who do parkour.
Yeah, I mean, topic of Dom and the topic of Send, and you already brought this up. Capst1 Oath just dropped, which is in Send in video form. But another great Dom example in that project is the Kong front to what ended up being a splat.
I was thinking, that's exactly what I was thinking as well.
And his reaction is actually what makes it a Send. Because we're questioning whether or not that was the plan. Like, was the plan to splat or was the plan to cat and hang onto the wall? Because it looks like you could. But he does it. But it's like, actually the plan was to Kong front. The plan was to Kong front.
Kong front across the gap.
Yes. And
whatever landing happened is what he was going to be.
Land unscathed. I think if he Kong fronted and didn't make it to the wall, like it just landed on the ground, it would have just been like he probably wouldn't have been pleased with it.
Yeah.
But because he made it to the wall, and cat or splat were kind of like two probably outcomes he had, it's I'll take it, and not only will I take it, that's a huge success, and he's stoked on it, and he should be, because it actually looks sick.
So here's the question: is what he did a splat?
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, the term splat, I feel like, has generally come to mean you've landed with your feet on the wall and bounced off like a cat leap landing or an arm jump landing, and then controlling the exit and landing on your feet at the end. He literally splatted the wall, which is smacked against it with most of his body and dropped down to his feet. So it's like if we go to an analogy of a stick, like a precision jump, like he didn't stick that jump, he landed and skied and slipped all the way off of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like it wasn't
like he got his feet there, but he didn't land it clean.
I guess you're then talking about like a clean splat versus
which is actually
a big. Okay, so again, Capst1 Oath, so many splats.
Yeah.
In Capst1 Oath, maybe more than any other, relatively for the length of the video, more than any other Capst1 release. It was like the theme of the video was like, we're being in the air for as long as we can, and we're hitting walls. And after my first watch, I was wondering, like, what counts? Because with sticks,
survival.
With sticks, like you have, I think the gold standard is no more than half of your foot over the edge, but sometimes we'll count sticks that go deeper, particularly if it's like a really hard challenge. But if we want it to be even more simple, it's like, well, you stuck to the thing you landed on. So even if you landed in the middle, you stuck to it. So it's a stick, right? And if it's a huge slab, then, whatever. But still, you stuck to it, it's a stick. I don't know what counts with a splat. I don't know, because it's a thing that actually like makes like skateboarding kind of cool, is like they have this definition of what counts. Like you stay on the board, if you touch the ground it doesn't count. Like you might get props depending on what the challenge is. I don't know.
It's like a stick. It's like if it's really really hard and they touch the floor, it's like we'll take it. Or if they do a little tic tac, which is like when they lift the front of the board and like to regain balance. And these usually doesn't count, but sometimes does. And then like another example with skateboarding, which is funny, which is like when they land on the board and the board kind of flexes and their heel like touches the floor, doesn't count. Yeah, it's like these rules of skateboarding force skaters to do so many more attempts than like the guys in like Capstone. Like that was one attempt. It was one attempt. Yeah. Like imagine if there, and I think it's kind of a weird direction for parkour. Because I do like when there is like a definitive it counts or not. And Capstone, and particularly one of the characters in Capstone, Justin Louis, who we've been harsh on in the past, it's like it seems like it goes in the video, if the send was made. If the send was made, like, and so Capstone kind of just becomes sends. It doesn't become like, oh, this counts, right? This counts as a clip. Whereas in skateboarding, and I think a lot of the guys in Capstone would probably look up to skateboarders, would look up to, a lot of these
skaters that have done incredible things, and those guys are doing like way more attempts at stuff because they have this layer of what counts. And I guess what I'm kind of looking for in this like send culture and parkour and like videos like Capstone is I would like to have a little bit more attempts so that we actually get an understanding of what counts rather than just a bunch of sends and you sent it. Like it doesn't because if you get hurt, it still counts. If you get or it still makes the video. You know, that's like seems to be the whole point.
Yeah, but that also like makes it cooler.
Sometimes.
But I guess like okay, man, I have so much to say about this now. On the topic of attempts, in your opinion, what was the best part of the
well, you know, okay, so you know my answer already, but yeah, it's like Sam Carter doing the fucked up Kong on like, is that even a like you gotta watch the
rail fence
video. We're just both doing T-Rex arms here, trying to show you this fence thingy that most people, even if it was on ground level, would not want to Kong that to whatever he's landing on. Art installation
it's
structure.
Like a metal tree structure.
Like a windmill, like tipped on its side at height. And yeah, he did multiple attempts, but it's almost like off brand or off theme of Capstone because he did multiple attempts. The first one,
that's why I thought it was awesome because the first one was like kind of a bail. The second one was a very controlled bail, and then the third one he stayed on. So there was like this like in his mind he had the standard of like I have to like at least stay on.
Yeah. So it makes sense why he did it again because the scale isn't as like ridiculous as many other things in Capstone.
It's not as risky in terms of the impact. There was risk because there was height, but in terms of impact that he was going to experience, it's like, oh, I can actually rep this out. I could do a few attempts at this.
Yeah. Well, he starts off the video with a fat like rail Kong that's splat, and so clearly like his I was gonna say Kong precision game, but it's like precision Kong game where like do you know what I mean? Like his
precision in terms of takeoff.
Precision in terms of like hand placement. His hand precision game for Kongs is really high, like very much world class. Because I think both of those challenges like really fully demonstrate that. And so when you look at the scale of the first challenge, which don't need to do that one again. Yeah, because that seemed to work out okay. Yeah, I think that again, like he splats, he lands, he does a back roll. Did
look like it hurt?
It's like I don't know. I don't know what counts with splats. Anyways,
he survived.
Yeah, but then there's like other clips in the video where like you splat and then you land on your feet and you maybe do a hand touch and it's different. Yeah. But anyways, back to the challenge that's our favorite part of the video, the Kong to the weird thing. It doesn't have the same scale, and after he did it once, I'm sure it was just okay. I get over the fear of precisely putting my hands on this thing, putting in power, and then landing on this other thing, and then it probably became like I bet I can like pre it. I bet I can stay on top. So he did.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that was definitely my favorite part because it mixed together so many elements of like there was like height, there was unique structure, there was very technical kind of components to it, but also it took multiple attempts and there was like kind of a process behind like figuring out how to actually land on this thing, and it's visually it looked really cool, but the majority of the video was just big splatty jumps, and there was some really cool like precisions and things like that happened. Like there was one stick and it was a Tim Champion like tack back.
Oh, was that Tim?
I think it
happened so fast.
That... But it really didn't like neither. If I'm pretty sure that was Tim, but there's also another clip of him doing like step vault to like drop to a rail. It didn't feel like either of his clips really fit with the video. They stood out because it was almost too clean, which is, it's weird to say that. It's like, oh, those clips are too clean for this video, but it's still really cool. I don't know if like if it made sense to include those in the video, unless they included more things that were clean, like technically clean in it. Which is interesting because like, what is the Capstone brand? I think of Capstone brand as being like big splats and big like sendy jumps, right? But they also had Yana Shower come, he was in the Capstone England project. And it's like, I don't really think of his style as being Capstone at all.
Yeah, depending on the definition, because we were talking about like the word capstone, and it's like the top of the, you know.
Yeah.
This is like the highest level of like parkour.
Yeah, but if it's that, then why aren't we seeing like Ellis Torhall? Because he does like he can do crazy high level like flips and precisions and things like that are sketchy. I don't know. It feels like they've actually shoehorned themselves into like this like Send style rather than high level parkour. Yeah. So I'm going to present an argument and then I'm going to present a devil's advocate to my own argument. But I was just perusing Reddit as I usually do. And the parkour subreddit is not a very good subreddit, but I try to go in there because there's a lot of beginners in there, and I'm always curious what people are trying to learn in parkour. That's one element of it, and I'm just curious about what the culture is that happens with people who are pretty new to parkour, because that's generally what most people in the parkour subreddit are attracted to. Anyway, one question came up on Reddit that was like, oh, what's like a video that you show to people who don't do parkour? Like, what's your go-to video? And somebody said Capst1 Oath. And it bugged me a little bit because it's like, yeah, like there's like high level things that happen in it, but is this really what we want to show to people of what parkour is? My belief is no, absolutely not. In fact, like, let's keep Capstone underground, like as this thing that's in the community of like, people know it happens. It's awesome that it's cool and that it's there, but it like, but do we really want people seeing that as like would you put Capstone on the TV in the lobby to show parents? Exactly. Like it's like, in fact, like not just parents like getting their kids into parkour, but would you show Capstone to somebody who's considering starting parkour? Like an adult? Yeah, no. Absolutely not. Why? Because it's like, oh, to do parkour, you have to take incredible risk and probably fall on your head. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it doesn't make any sense to me to show Capst1 Oath to somebody who's like, oh, I'm considering getting into parkour. Oh, parkour, what's that? Tell me, show me something that explains what parkour is. So, and that begs the question of like, is this Send style of parkour, is this a good thing in our community? Because if I'm not willing to like show newcomers to the sport this video, because it just shows parkour in this crazy sketchy light that's going to actually probably turn people off from it, then should we even be like applauding this at all? And so, yeah, so that's the argument that I wanted to present. But the devil's advocate approach is this. I'm going to use the same argument that I used when we were talking about beans and like the new contemporary style, like freestyle parkour. And that is, in order for parkour to grow out of the box that it's in, we need people pushing the limits of things that are outside of that box. And in this case, I think Capstone is doing that in just a different way than what the contemporary parkour, like freestyle parkour people are doing. And that it's like the vast majority of people aren't probably going to do like massive big splats because it is crazy risky, and it's also not very controlled, and you can't control a lot of the unknowns. But it allows us to see what's possible in that realm, and maybe future generations will be able to do that, but better.
Yeah. First of all, that 13-year-old child on Reddit, that's probably just his recent favorite video and t-shirt and stuff. But I also would say, like, and this isn't really in defense of Beans or Capstone or anything like that, they're not making it for, like, general population. They're not making... They're like
yes.
Capstone to an extent, maybe. I'm sure they're happy if their content, be it their Instagram content or their YouTube projects, go viral. I'm sure they're happy about that. But when they're like making the project, it's like they're making it for that 13-year-old kid so that he's inspired to do exactly what you're saying, to one day do this, if not better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I get that Capstone is definitely not for the public, right? It's for the people who are into parkour, who can appreciate what's happening. But I guess, are we putting in over appreciation on the value of that? Like, if we go back to what Matthias Meyer is saying, is like, there's a ton of uncertainty around what these people are doing, and maybe this is like showing bad mental game in that they're just throwing their bodies at these structures and hoping that it works out, and sometimes it's not.
Mental game in parkour is something that I don't know, it continues to fascinate. It continues to be something that I change my opinion on and think about all the time, and I loathe it when people recommend books or podcasts or people to listen to or whatever on it, because it's all like based around like psychology and it can go quite deep. But I do agree somewhat with the notion that mental game is like or I guess fear is relative. Like fear of heights, for example. It's relative. You could be, we could get a bunch of 20-year-old adult males together and put them up on a roof, and none of them have parkour experience, and some of them will be up there just chilling, like, oh, yeah, this doesn't feel high, right? And some of them will be like, can we get away from the edge now? Because this like really sucks. And already, like, whatever your baseline is there is going to determine how close you can get to doing the Capstone-esque things in your parkour journey. Yeah. It's almost like, weird comparison, but this came up in the Store podcast when we were talking about Jared Ludy doing MMA. Is like, if you can be so athletic in MMA, but if you don't have a good chin, you don't go far. And if the standard for elite excellence in parkour is being able to do stuff at height, some people are going to have such a low baseline to do that with. Yeah. Right? I think present parties included in that, where it's like baseline super low. Your height tolerance, if it's super low to begin with, you're only going to go so far in parkour if this is like the elite standard that you're chasing, versus I would assume that when, I don't know, Justin Louis started parkour, that the idea of like impact or heights probably didn't phase him as much as it phased me. I'm not certain he would agree with that. You know, he might have a completely different take and different story, and that's fine. But just for example's sake, some people start with a much lower baseline, some people start with a much higher baseline when it comes to that. And so when we talk about like being mentally strong, well, if your baseline tolerance is like higher, then you didn't require much mental strength. Like you didn't have to like fight and get the, really use like your reasoning and your rationale and like, stomp your feet, beat your chest, breathe in through the nose to like, get the challenge done, because you're like, oh, heights, it doesn't really bother me. Right. But if heights and risk and impact really does bother you, you gotta train that mental muscle like so much more to get any closer to doing any of these like risky feats.
Yeah. Yeah, like I personally have a fear of heights.
Yeah.
And people are surprised when I say that because they've seen my ascension videos. And it's like, yeah, but this. And I'm like, yeah, but that's coming purely from my the physical ability that I've built up to be able to do that. I can rely on that with rationality. But it's terrifying. I don't know if you remember, but the last climb in Ascension 2, you were trying to get like another angle from like the top. And you were like, yeah, just climb over into the cat and then climb back up and then we'll just cut it in. And I was like, no. I was like terrified of just climbing over and hanging to just to do the climb back up.
This is after you had done a like 2-story up very exposed dyno, jumping out from the wall, coming back into the wall. We've talked about the challenge before. Yeah, you did it twice, and then we were back on top of the roof, and I'm like, oh, I just want to get an extra shot. Can you just go into the hang position on the outside of the wall? You would do it, and it was like,
I think I
you did do it, but you just hated it.
I was like, I was so fearful, but that's just like me being scared of heights. That's my general baseline is like, I'm just terrified of heights. But in some circumstances, I can will myself to get to the point of performing because I trusted in my ability and my preparation so much. And that's different than some others who are just like, I'm fine with heights in general. And so I can easily trust myself to do this. Yeah, but I do think you need, like, in order to perform at like the really high level, I think you kind of need both. You need to be have a higher baseline in general, and then also be very well physically, technically prepared to do the thing, so that you're the match of like what you're, as Matthias says, your perception of your ability and your actual ability actually match perfectly.
Yeah. And I guess just to add on like what I was trying to say earlier is that's when we think about like parkour and it's like a most elite standard, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings with this or anything like that, but it 100% is like doing things at height, doing like scary, risky things. That is like the pinnacle of parkour. I don't like tiptoeing around the issue and thinking like, well, you could do this and this kind of movement instead and be really good at that. It's like, no. Parkour, like the whole big risky element is definitely the pinnacle of it, and definitely what's going to get pushed as time goes on is like what we're going to see as like the most elite things to do. And and so you could be very, very powerful, very athletic, very technically sound. But if the baseline of what you start with, like your mental is low, you probably won't reach the like world-class, like top people doing parkour. Yeah.
I feel like there is some argument too, because parkour has such a large umbrella now, that the freestyle side of things.
Okay, that was in my mind too, but it's the same thing. Like, look at what Alice Torhal's doing. Yeah. Like, you can't. There's people that are afraid of like just doing, present party included. There's people that are afraid of like just doing like a single backflip.
Yeah,
you know.
So there's risk in more rotations and twists that have nothing to do with height. So it's like scale in general is like carries an increased weight of risk, and so in general I agree with your point, but I just wanted to like stipulate that like you don't necessarily have to do roof gaps to be like at the pinnacle of parkour, because you could still be pushing the risk in other ways.
Yeah, but the key word there being risk.
Yes, exactly.
Pushing risk. And again, if your goal in parkour is to be one of the top 5 freestyle athletes in the world, and day one you're trying to learn backflips and you're just like unwilling to, like, you're already somewhat athletic and you're just unwilling to like rotate around, versus if day one, if you're just willing to slam, the kid that's willing to slam is going to go like way further. Unless they get hurt.
Unless they get hurt, which they might be more at risk for. But I mean, we've talked about him before, but Jewel, he was terrified to do backflips when I started working with him in the beginning, and now he's
late bloomer. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's an example of somebody who like just put in the work and learned how to fall a bunch through like playing around and stuff.
You can't always. I will dial that back a bit. You day one isn't going to be like definitive, but I'm trying to relate it to the same thing that I say like in that I was saying about being an MMA fighter or a boxer. Like if you can't take a punch and unfortunately, that's not something that like you can train very well. Like there's certain things about training and cardiovascular activity and strength that like can make you a bit more stable and be able to enhance that ability. But like there's some people that just have like born with wildly higher ability to take that type of punishment. And I think the same thing is true for one's ability to slam or to send or whatever, or to like just go into like those risky situations. I think we're just going to see more of that in parkour as like time goes on. That it's going to be, if we're looking at prospects, right, of people who are going to be the best. I think like that's going to be one of the most important stats is like how willing are they to like take risk.
Yeah, but again, going back to it is like, if they're a little bit too willing to take risks, they might end up injuring and falling out from parkour as a result of it. Dom is an exception because he's somehow been able to bounce back even after bad injuries. But I don't think everybody's like that. I think he's just an outlier.
Yeah.
In many ways. So
can we do final thoughts on Oath?
Because we haven't even talked about like just generally like the video. So let's start with.
Not my favorite thing to do on this program is to like dive like deep into video like deconstruction.
Yeah.
I would say like overall.
Just overall. Like, high-level
overall, thoughts. I enjoyed Oath. It's really just like a 6-minute watch with like a minute of extra B-roll at the end. That kind of made it a bit longer, but really kind of the action ends around the 6-minute mark. Some surprising things for sure, as always. I was really happy to see Justin Louis get some completions this time and not just have a bunch of fail clips. So that was awesome.
He did have a big fail clip though.
My only real actual criticism for Oath is the exposure of the video, which is unfortunate. So Sam, you gotta change those settings for the next one because it came out a little bit underexposed, which is. It's a tough one that I can sympathize with because sometimes you'll be editing on a certain screen and you'll have like a certain color or a certain brightness, and then you'll export and it'll look different. And if no one catches it, like if you don't have someone reviewing it and being like, "Hey, this looks a little dark," it just goes public and you can't do anything about it.
It might have been just like the vibe that he was feeling.
Could be,
but
it was too much though.
Yeah. Or is that your
That's
thoughts?
it.
Okay, yeah. That was my thought exactly. When I watched it on my TV and I like could barely see a lot of it. And I was like, is this just my TV or whatever? I watched it on my phone and I felt like it was better. Like I was able to see easier. But in general, I did feel like it was too dark. But I'm not really an editor. So I won't like criticize that too much. I actually just didn't like the music. It just felt like it kind of was like lulling me. There was like a nice little build up to the climax of Sam's like calling to the fake tree thing. But then it just kind of fizzles out at the end. Like the end didn't feel like definitive. Like there's the big tree splat and then there's like some B-roll. But yeah, I don't know. Like the video, like upon my like second and actually third watch now, it's there's some really cool stuff that happens in there, and in general, I'm just conflicted on this whole Send thing, and especially after like that Matthias video, because I think he explains it really well. That articulates what I think is kind of pulling my mind in both directions here, because really high level movement on one hand, really reckless and dangerous on the other, how much do I want to encourage that type of behavior? And do I want to show our youth team members like, hey, let's watch Capstone now. You guys ready? Versus like I think one piece that's just missing is you could have highest level of parkour that not be just big bales. You know, which is essentially like the big splat thing. Like that, like that's like an interesting, you know, rabbit hole to go down in parkour. But there's so many other rabbit holes that can express parkour with like cleaner, like better technique that also involves sending. That I just wish would be highlighted more in the Capstone videos. And but maybe that's not the brand, and maybe that's not the purpose of it. And you definitely shouldn't make videos for me. But I think culturally in parkour, we need to ask ourselves the question of, do we really value hucking our bodies and just surviving, or do we value cleanliness of technique and control? Because historically we've really valued control, but it seems like there's this move towards this sending, hucking style of parkour that we're really valuing as a culture. And I think we don't need to decide between the two, but we should definitely consider these as different qualities that we should be cautious with.
Yeah, I feel like some of the former Capstone releases, struggling to remember which ones, but the one that was like had a bigger like Tim Champion part and like Toby Seeger part, and
that was
like
Swarm,
probably the best one, and it had a lot of like more completion, and like which seemed like these a lot of these characters in this, a lot of athletes in this are at the top of what they're doing. Right. Yeah,
and I think Capstone England is another good example of it, because it had Verky in it, and he's doing like Kongin. You know, they were doing moves that were still really high level, but with a level of control and just demonstrating parkour on a high level, and maybe a standard as well. You know, it just seemed more of that in the England project and the Swarm project as well, rather than what we're seeing from Oath. So yeah, I actually think Oath was probably the worst Capstone project. Not that it was a really bad video, but it just definitely wasn't as good as Swarm or the England project.
Yeah, not too spicy of a take. I still really enjoyed it, and I tend to enjoy a free and shorter video, which is kind of getting rare these days. And I actually like the music. I was vibing with it. Music choice is tricky.
I agree. Yeah, I've definitely chosen bad music for my videos. So
I definitely have been criticized on music choice, although. Intentionally tried to be a little ironic.
Yeah.
But yeah. I wanted to get us to move on now because a couple of the homies in the gym were talking about these two videos that got released back to back. So we have Oath, which we were just talking about, and then we have Gatecrasher. And it was funny because I think it was Michael Kennedy, who coaches, manages, works at the gym. He was saying that Gatecrasher made him want to train, and Oath did not. And I think that's good feedback. I think that's good. I think that's a good, way to kind of like seal the difference here. Is, it's cool to be showing like this inspirational level of send, but ultimately, if you're not inspiring people to go out, I guess then maybe it's not that successful a video, because I think that's. I like that. If I make a video and I've got this response a few times, I'll put out a video, because I'm the old guy, and I'll get comments or people saying like, oh, I really want to train now. This really pumped me up, and I'm like, sweet. I'm glad I got that emotion, out of you, because that ultimately felt like what I was trying to do. If Capstone, if they're not trying to do that, whatever, that's fine.
You can't unfortunately, you can't measure that, but it would be so cool if you could. It's like, how many people did you inspire to train with this video?
Yeah. How many people,
rather than likes or views?
how many people saw this in the morning and were like, I'm gonna get out and start,
It's a way cooler metric than saves. I actually felt similar with Gatecrasher. I felt, so it's a longer video. It's like almost 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like it felt like 40 minutes. Like it felt much shorter, and it finished with me feeling like that was like a great watch. Like I'm almost sad it's over, there's not more to it, but that's always a good sign whenever you watch a video where I felt like Gatecrasher was an inspiring video. It made me want to go out and play and have fun with my friends, because that's kind of what the whole theme of it was. I don't know if they're all friends, but I'm assuming they are. But it looked like they were having a good time, and the one shot of them like in the apartment, I thought was like pretty fun, and is a interesting vibe too, because Gatecrasher is an all-female cast, and it's so different from like my experience in parkour, which is like, there's a lot of things that happen with women that I don't have to consider, including things like, I don't know, just like the way they groom themselves, right? Like they have like a blow dryer. Like you use a blow dryer for your beard, but I don't use a blow dryer. And like there's like, it's like sparking, and like there's almost like a fire or whatever. I don't know, just like the female experience in parkour is valid and underrepresented generally. Like we're not like, so like you go to a parkour jam and you are barely going to see any women there, but it's cool seeing this like actual this basically collective of women who have different life experiences than the young athletic males that they're usually surrounded by. And I guess getting to see that and their interactions with each other and their just interactions in general as being a different part of our species, it feels like interesting to see. It's like a window into that world that I don't feel like I really get much of.
I want to talk about the movement first in the video. Before anything else, because it's called a parkour action film.
Yes.
And so I think the intention was more to highlight the movement with like some other segments around it and stuff. And yeah, like they really delivered. I think going into it was hard for me not to have high expectations because of the crowdfunding and everything that went into this video, and like just personally like knowing the dollar amount that they eventually got. So I went into watching this trying to temper expectations, but ultimately had like really high expectations because I had that information. I wish I didn't, because I would like to, be able to watch something like Capstone I'm watching, and I'm like, hey, they don't got any money. They're just making this, right? But when I know that there's like a big dollar amount behind it, it's like, okay, how did they spend this money? My entrepreneur hat is on the whole friggin' time, like thinking like, all right, what did they? how much of those went to plane tickets? How much went to editing and stuff? But anyways. The movement and the filming of the movement, really, really well done. A standout to me was actually like Lisa Eckert, and we talk about like wanting to train after, and like the way she's pushing drop cats. It's like, I watched the video and I'm like, I kind of want to go out and like hit some drop cats, kind of want to go do these things. And some of the line creation and development with like Tam and Camilla.
I like that whole section actually.
Like just watching them put together.
Cam with the Tam.
that was a good bit. Really cool. Great to see Rene Dombley, that we haven't actually seen a lot of her, particularly in just like video clips. I've said on this program before that I've wanted like a project of just her for a while, and I'm sure she has different things happening in life that like prevent her from doing that, but I still want to see that because she's at such a high level and has never really had like a solo project, but at least she got like some solo parts in this.
I was really sad she didn't get the dyno. I was like she looked like she was gonna get it too.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like the inclusion of that 2-hand grab to peel out on that was really great. I don't have too much to say about like individual parts because I rarely do when it comes to videos. I'm gonna have to like rewatch. I would say like that's a bit of a negative on it is that rewatch takes 40 minutes. And it actually took me a day or two to actually like sit down because I wanted to sit down where I had 40 minutes to go uninterrupted, and it just it's not always the case every day for me. But yeah, movement wise, what are some of your takeaways?
The first piece of movement that happened, I think it's the first piece of movement that happened. Do you remember what it was? Because it's very standout to me because of what happens to the structure.
Oh yeah.
Rachel does like a lache. It's not like a big lache or anything like that. It's just a really cool like feature.
Yeah.
And it's just a massive. It's a fairly large lache drop.
Yeah.
And she like you see them beforehand. She's just kind of like checking out the structures. Like, is this gonna break? And then she does it, and it does break. And she's fine. But the standout quote was, "My dad's gonna kill me when he sees this." And I laughed so hard because it's like, probably that was a questionable decision there to lash to that, but it worked out, so it was cool. But if it didn't work out, it wouldn't have been so cool.
Yeah.
So that was one standout piece to it, and then
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Elise Bickley. I would have loved to see what would happen if she didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Get well, Elise. I believe she's going in for knee surgery. And I don't know if it's from that particular incident, but I'm assuming it was.
Sure it is.
But she delivered 2 amazing side pre's before that happened and everything.
I was blown away by the first one that she did. The one where she like stuck it.
Yeah.
At height. It's like, it was.
Yeah.
It was wild. I was like.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I almost wish that I always like want to take notes for videos and stuff, and I almost wish that I watched it like right before recording this, which I'm quite a few days removed because now I'm thinking like, oh, Lilu had like a bunch of standout things. It's like
Lisa Schneider.
Yeah.
She's like, she's quite good. I think it was really
the whole cast. Louisa in there, Hazal. They all had their standout moments for sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like if anything went really well with the edit is that they did a really good job of giving each athlete their individual parts and making sure they had standout moments. Yeah,
and in general, it felt like if watching it felt like you're there and you're like buying into their story, like you're part of their story that's playing out, and you're rooting for them to do the jump or to achieve the challenge or whatever it is. And so, like that's such a big part of parkour. It's an action film, but it's not just action. It's like you're kind of getting a little bit of the insight in what goes into breaking a challenge, which was nice, and it made it a better watch as a result. Because if it was just pure action, I think I would have been bored by the 6-minute mark. But because they pulled us in with like more like we're gonna break this challenge, or we're looking at this structure to see if it's gonna hold, or like various things like that made it worthwhile to watch through to the whole end. Again, it was 40 minutes, but I didn't feel like it, at least for me.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about non-movement here, and this is where I'm going to get a little critical with the project.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I'm going to try to frame this around like what I'm assuming the goal of the project was, and I believe there's something written. We can pull up the description later if you want to see it, but I believe there's something written about like this video is for the girl who likes to send, blank wants to just. I feel like if I got a group of girls in the gym, young ladies, like, teenagers, kids, and had them watch this, I feel like there'd be a lot of points where they would tune out, and there'd be a lot of points where they would get confused.
Okay.
Could be wrong on that. If someone does this experiment and shows a group of girls and they all love it and they're tuned in the whole time, I will happily eat my words on this.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how it felt. I feel like a lot of the B-roll was very like inside joke. No reference given, no explanation, and you kind of have to know them to get it. I was watching it with Gloria, and the movement, she's like emoting. She's like, wow, watching it, getting into it, and then turning to me during some of the B-roll moments and saying like, why do they keep cutting to this? Why did they keep doing this? So she had like the opposite of what you're saying, where you're like, oh, if it was all action, I wouldn't have liked it. I don't think it needed to be all action, but I do feel like they filled in with some stuff that didn't really fit. And I'm going to do a little comparison here to some other releases.
Okay.
So there was a video project that cost money, I think, that came out a couple years ago that we were pretty harsh on this program, and some people didn't like how harsh we were. And that video project is Breach.
Yeah.
And this felt a lot like Breach. Better executed. Way better music selection in terms of like drawing me in and giving me highs and lows. But a lot of similarities in terms of like the breaks and stories and stuff. And in some ways, I think Breach did a better job in executing that and kind of taking you on the story. I feel like there was a problem with Gatecrasher is it's an action film, or titled an action film, and it's not. There's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of taken away, and if you were going to make my problem is if you're going to make a documentary, make a documentary. If you're going to make an action piece, make an action piece. But they seem to have tried to do both. And there's some weirdness to it because of that. And again, because I'm on the inside and I know a lot of these people, like these athletes, I can get in on the jokes and I can get in on what the feelings and stuff like that. But if this was supposed to be for like inspiring the next generation of women, there's some, or just people that don't know them, and if the goal is like to get more views and attention and push, because I remember in some of the build up, it's like, oh, we want this to be, I think one of the goals is, wanting it to be when you look on YouTube, like Parkour Women, that this shows up. And so I think they missed the mark on making it viewable by general population that isn't really in it. Another example being like Hazal breaking down because of the jump that she couldn't commit to. And I'm totally okay with that being in there. What bothered me about it is I actually expected to see the jump later on. I felt like it was weird to put in just the length that they did. That's like a 5-minute segment maybe of her talking about the jump and the turmoil and everything. And it's but kind of the start of great storytelling, and then it just kind of gets ignored later. Like there's no mention of anything, and even the same thing when like Rene Donnelly like breaks down after completing a challenge, goes a bit long, and there's no context. Like there's not a lot of build up to like that it was going to be really scary. So it's like they're missing. I think the filmmakers in this case should have either shot more footage to either fake or like there's so many things you can do to like fake or pretend the build up for it, and it was just like, oh, here she is doing a lache, oh okay, she prepped that one, and then like, oh, she did it, and then she just starts crying, and it's like, wait, what's happening?
It didn't look like a battle. Yeah. So okay, so you said a lot here.
Yeah. Sorry. If I can, I'll just kind of finish up. Again, overall, video made me want to train. It successfully did that. But I wish there was just a better decision on the filmmaker's part. So whoever was in charge of editing, whoever was in charge of shooting, and ultimately reviewing and post-production, on being a little bit more critical of their work, of like, what are we doing here? Like, is this a 40-minute action edit because there's a lot extra there, or is this a documentary? Because if it's a documentary, you need to go back, you need to do interviews, you need to have a bit of narration perhaps to like fit it all together, and it was just missing that. So it ends up being a montage with breaks. And then the last thing I'll say here is there is a piece that I didn't actually watch called "Spitting in the Wind," and it was a Modus. Projects thing, which was probably very much like this. And I never saw "Spitting in the Wind," but I did watch Spit, and Spit was the action edit. And so what I'm going to say here is what I think they should do, because ultimately they're just going to get more views, is put out the pure action edit with maybe a little bit of like you can still have like a montage that's just an action edit and still show like Rene reacting to the thing for a moment, you know, to the lashing for a moment, like showing, like getting emotional, and then even, you know, put in the Hazal part if you want to, and a lot of the celebrations. But just, I bet you could condense the whole thing down to like 8 minutes, and it, you might double your views. You might get tons of views on the one edit, and then another chunk of views on the condensed one. Maybe,
I don't know.
That's my take. That's my unsolicited advice. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, so you said a lot of things. First of all, I enjoyed Gatecrasher way more than I enjoyed Breach. Like, it was definitely a better film in so many ways. I felt more tied into each of the characters than I did with Breach. And Breach did a lot of like the interview thing, and I think that was a mistake. So I don't think that. So I agree with you that there was a lot of like unnecessary B-roll that like really didn't need to be there. I felt like the Hazal thing. One of the first things I said to my wife Caroline after we had watched it was, "It's too bad Hazal didn't get that jump." So it like stood out in my mind as something that was in there, but it was almost like when I said it, I was thinking like, kind of, it would have been better if she did it, you know, like in my head.
Yeah, that section just should have been shorter. It's like,
I think you're right.
Don't build me up like that. Don't build me up with 5 minutes of like talking about it to not show it. It's weird.
Here's potentially the argument for including it and making it long, is that it reflects the experience of the athletes when you're frustrated that you can't do something or you can't get yourself to do something, and in the end, like, you've invested all this time into trying to do it, and then you don't do it, you get the same experience. And so maybe that's just trying to pull
Wait, what do you mean you get the same experience? Compared to what? What are the two experiences we're comparing?
You're showing the viewer, like, look at all this investment that you've put into watching this, and you don't get the payout. So like, it's like the comparison of what Hazal's feeling.
Okay, so the viewer gets the same experience as
yes, her. Exactly. Yeah. So,
which isn't a good viewing experience then.
It's not, but it's maybe it may be. Yeah, I agree with you that it was probably too long, that section. But you definitely need to include it because that's an experience in parkour. It's the same thing that happened in Soul Destroyer, but there was no talking.
Different because, yes, but also, I might be remembering this wrong, but I think we had a problem with that when we talked about it.
Yes, but it's part of the art to show what happens in parkour.
But I think I had the same criticism,
and you invest experience and trying to do something, and then you don't get the payout, and that's trying to have the viewer experience the same thing. And so, in general, like, I agree as a viewer, if I'm watching it, I'm like not getting the payout, and so it's a slightly worse viewing experience. But I kind of appreciate it as a pulling the person into the process of parkour and not getting the payout. That's just what happens in parkour. It happens. And you can totally make the argument that, like, well, if it's not as good of an experience for the viewer, then it shouldn't be included, or it should be reduced significantly. That's totally valid argument, but I'm proposing a potentially different perspective here that is just part of the art of the film is trying to get the person to experience what the athlete is experiencing. And maybe that's not at all the intention, and maybe they just made it go too long, and it was just, oh, I guess we could have just shortened it or whatever. But that's just like the way I'm trying to interpret this after the fact.
Yeah, weirdly, it could have been longer and had like more explanation to it. It just is a weird, like, Bop, we're going to, put some motion. And I would say the same thing about Soul Destroyer. Like, I didn't like the length of, and Luis got that jump. Right? Yeah. So they got Luis getting the jump. We got a bit of, I guess,
Max.
And they got lucky in that instance where like someone got completion. Mm-hmm. And so you get a bit of viewer satisfaction there, and then someone, doesn't do it. But like, I don't know. It's like, and I get that there's like a time limit because you're only in a place for like so long and stuff. But yeah, I just didn't agree with I'm going to say the editing choices there. Is what I don't
I think it would have been nicer if there was like kind of a full circle thing of like getting her say like, I'm going to walk away from the jump or so, something along the lines of like close the loop of like we don't just move on to the next thing. It's like, I'm not going to do it today.
So what I'll ask you then, when that segment finished, did you expect to see it again after?
I was hoping to see it for sure. Yeah.
I didn't just hope. I expected. I feel like the way they ended that gave me the expectation that I was going to see the jump happen later.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like someone could just clip any part of this and make me seem like I'm just like hating on Hazal and the thing, and it's not the case. We had a little bit of preamble about this, and it's like we both cried, we both shed tears for like jumps we haven't done. Challenges we've done.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever for challenges I haven't done, but I've never also had that pressure of like, I'm out here for this big project and there's money behind it and a time limit and stuff. And so, yeah, totally get that all. It's just, I'm going to keep saying the same thing. The project at the end doesn't have a clear identity of what it is. If it's supposed to be an action edit or a documentary or what it is, it's not clear.
Fine. I personally still interpreted it as an action edit, despite having elements that were documentary-like. I didn't feel like it was. Like I know your perspective is that it has an identity crisis, is like it's calling itself an action edit, but it's trying to be a documentary. I didn't feel that way because it felt like it was very minimal documentary features in it. Whereas like the better example is Queen City was a documentary, right? And it felt like Gatecrasher was still an action edit because for the most part, most of the watch was I'm watching action happen with little like pockets of story around challenges that we were witnessing. Or like another example is Hive Mind was trying to be like documentary. And I feel like a lot of the like discussion and talk around it like was documenting. But I think if you compare the amount of talking that happens in Gatecrasher versus Hive Mind or Queen City, it's like drastically less. So it's still mostly action edit.
So, sorry, did you just compare Hive Mind and Queen City, or Gatecrasher and Queen City?
Hive Mind and Queen City are like the same, like because they were both very documentary, and I felt like Gatecrasher was very minimal talking, but still included some of it and some of the like documenting of the process of challenges. But that's also what makes it a very watchable experience, in that I don't always want to just see action. It's like it's why I always skip past Instagram compilations, because I don't care about just witnessing action all the time, because I'm always bombarded with just action. I want to see process and storytelling, which is why Store does a great job with vlogging and things like that. It's more entertaining to watch a story unfold, or even if it's not with words, if it's like we're trying, this is, they try a jump and they're breaking it down and then they're building up to something bigger or something. Anyway, I agree to some degree with some of what you're saying, especially because there's a lot of money behind this. There's $30,000 or euros. Was it 35,000 euros, which is quite a lot of money to go into a parkour video, which it's debatable to me whether or not this was actually worth that much money. I think, in my opinion, one of the best produced films in parkour to date. I enjoyed it more than most films that have come out. I enjoyed it more than Hive Mind, more than Queen City, more than Breach, more than the Modus.
Yeah, I'm not about to start like comparing videos.
No,
I feel like that's just like a weird slope to go on.
Well, no, the thing is, the question I have is like whether like some of those are paid projects and whether any of those have actually generated the same amount of revenue as Gatecrasher, because that's a lot of money for a project. And
it's not revenue, it's capital.
Because it's like
it's pre-production.
but if I'm like building a new product, a new widget, I'm like, hey, I sell these things. I'm raising money through Kickstarter, and then I produce and I give it to people. That's
semantics of capital versus revenue.
Anyway, it's a lot of money going into the project. So I think you're right to have high expectations, because that's also money that's up front. That's not money that was being generated like by sales on Vimeo or whatever. So you're right to have high expectations. And so I guess high level here, because you're being very critical in some of the filmmaking elements of it, which I think you're right to do. But did you enjoy the film? Like on an emotional level?
No, I said at the opening that I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I think where I'm being critical is on what I understood to be like the goal.
So here, let me read the goal then.
Well, is that Kickstarter or is that YouTube?
This is Kickstarter.
Because there's a different write-up on YouTube.
Okay. Is it different? It could be the same.
100%. Yeah.
All right, so I'll pull it up. This is the same that's on
It is the same?
Kickstarter. Okay. Okay, this film isn't about gender inequalities or the sexualization of women in parkour or the experience of being a woman in male-dominated sports. This film is all about highlighting high-class parkour athletes pushing their boundaries and boundaries of the sport. Gatecrasher follows 8 female parkour athletes as they travel through 3 European cities over the course of 3 weeks, training, exploring, and having a great time. This film is for the girls in parkour class looking for role models who send hard. It's for the athletes needing motivation to explore their city. It's for the practitioner looking for new ways to move, and for everyone who played with the idea of giving parkour a try and hasn't found the courage to do it yet. If you like to move, this film is for you.
Cool. So 4 demographics. That's 4.
Athletes. Oh no, girls in parkour class. Athletes needing motivation. Practitioner looking for new ways to move. And everyone who played with the idea of giving parkour a try and hasn't found the courage to do it.
Okay. So I'm opening. I feel like this is an invitation to have an opinion because of the description, right? I never read Capst1 descriptions. I don't actually know, but it's like Capst1 kind of puts out stuff, and it's like video. It's like their whole thing is like, we're not going to explain. You just watch it. You get very much like an explanation here of like what it's for. So I feel like they nail the middle too, and they miss the top and bottom. So they miss the girls and they miss the people wanting to give it a try.
Interesting. I think that's potentially true. I kind of don't agree though. Because
I think for length, for length and the intro. So again, YouTube is very much, particularly when we think of like, if we're saying girls, I'm assuming we're saying like young girls, right? It's like YouTube, so much of it is like turn on video, sell me in the first 5 seconds on what I'm watching so I don't flip to another video, right?
I think what they're hoping for is that a parkour gym like Origins is going to show this video to some of our young female clients.
Well, what we do during camps often is like show videos and things, right? And kids have low attention spans. Like we'll put it on and it's hard to get them to like sit through the whole video, right?
That's true. But like, there's one young girl in particular that I'm like, be cool if she watched Gatecrasher.
Who are you thinking of?
I don't know if you taught her. Ivy?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's still pretty new, but like very into doing parkour things.
And the thing is, like, I'm so on board with the mission, which I guess is part of the reason why I'm being critical here. Is because I'm very much on board with the mission of let's get more of all the things that they're saying this is in front of in front of girls, because there's way there's way too much of what we opened today's program with, which is Dom hitting himself against the wall, right?
That's a lot of parkour media.
There's way too much of young male doing high level risky thing. Not enough young female doing high level risky thing, which is something to look up for even younger girls to look up to.
Yeah, and I think this. So they definitely accomplished that, like athletes needing motivation. Demographics.
Yeah, it's like I said, I watched it and it was like, oh, like you're putting me in training mood, putting me in like I want to go out and do that stuff. Not through the entire 40 minutes, mind you, but for like good chunk. There was enough good moments that gave me that feeling.
The practitioner looking for new ways to move. I think there's some like interesting things that happen in it that were like, oh, like that's a unique take on a move. So that I might be willing to give a shot. And then everyone who played with the idea of giving parkour a try and hasn't found the courage to do it yet. I feel like this is like one of those things that it's hard to actually target this person. Like they have to like be like, we came across this guy the other day while we were training, and he like came up and he's like, I'm part of the Storer Army, and he's never done parkour, but I actually saw he's like following all the Storers or whatever, and he seemed like he was like, you guys are really inspiring me right now. I'm gonna go like, and I was like, oh, we got a parkour gym, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna be there. I don't know if he'll actually show up, but there's potentially some inspiration.
He was stoked.
He was very stoked, and I wonder. I mean, like it has to happen with videos. I wonder if this video is going to do that, if it's going to actually inspire people to start doing parkour. But I wonder if that's like a big part of why they're like including some of these elements of like emotion around breaking a jump or not breaking a jump with like the Hazal part, because it's like showing the viewer like this is scary. Yeah, like. Parkour is scary, and it's okay to feel afraid, and sometimes you feel afraid and you still do it, and sometimes you feel afraid and you can't get yourself to do it. But either way, it's okay. Like you move on to the next challenge, and like you continue to try to grow.
Do you know what I wanted after the Hazal thing? So in lieu of commentary, just the title, like. Hazal didn't end up, Hazal did not go back to complete the, just some sort of acknowledgement of what, anyways, I kind of wanted to just wrap up my thoughts on this, because I'm currently just talking about Gatecrasher, but really it's just like a theme with like all parkour projects, we'll say, because there's kind of like two types of projects that everyone's moving into. One is the short or shorter, we'll say, action edit. That I just always want to call montage now. Is like you're making a montage to music of your achievements, and then there's longer project. And I got a little heated on like a previous thing because I think everyone in parkour is underestimating how hard it is to make a long project and make it successful and make it be like, get millions of views on YouTube or something. They're just drastically underestimating how hard it is, and it seems like it's just like this attempt of like, let's just make the video longer, and I'm thinking like, make it shorter, and I think that, to me, this is another example of like something that just could have been shorter and would have got, I think the good vibes I got would have been amplified, and I think that the reach out of it would have been amplified. And I know you're looking at views right now. Guess who shared this on YouTube?
Dom?
Store.
Oh, Store. Yeah.
They never share anything that's not their own. They never share anything that's not their own. Sorry, it is their own because I know Toby was involved in the edit, and he could have done a better job. But I think aim shorter is what I'd like to see out of a lot of the attempts at long form, because as soon as you pass like the 10-15 minute mark, it's still long, and you should be like putting it in front of like your someone whose opinion you trust or whatever, who doesn't actually do parkour, and get them to watch it, and pause it at 3 minutes, be like, you bored? You into this? You still into this? Why or why not? These are the types of things that freaking Jimmy the Giant did like a whole video on this type of thing, like back when he was still doing parkour stuff, about like his process of like showing stuff to like maybe his girlfriend and saying like, are you into this still? Are you into this? Okay, pause or continue. It's like, if you're a parkour filmmaker and you're not doing this, you're not going to be doing a good job. Particularly if your goal is to reach as many people and inspire as many people as possible. Show it to audiences that don't know anything about parkour. Again, ideally someone close to you that you trust, and try to get an honest opinion about them, of how they're feeling about the watch, and then rework it until you manage to keep their attention. Yeah,
I guess so. You said you kind of said like, if the goal is to get millions of views or whatever for virality or whatever, then, but I guess like I tend to think like, I wonder what their goals or expectations were for this film, because we were talking about views, so 60, almost 67,000 views now, and 6.4k likes. Is that successful to them, or were they hoping for?
Sure, that's 100? That's a huge number. That's a huge,
but not you.
Yeah.
I'm curious about them. Other Rene. Like what was successful to them? Like were they stoked if they hit 20,000, or are they like really hoping for 100, or were they like 1 million would be? It's
also a huge number for Point A, which is the platform this is on. You know what I'm actually wondering?
Because Point A doesn't have a lot of followers.
I had this thought: why isn't this on Store? If you got Toby Seeger editing it, if they're going to make a post on a YouTube post, which is way more effective than an Instagram post saying like, hey, go to this video. If you make a YouTube post saying go to this video and you have a big channel, it's gonna be more successful. I wonder. This is an open Store question. If anyone from Store wants to leave a comment, whatever, addressing this, but I wonder if they have thought about putting other people's projects on their platform, like other brands or whatever, to use their 12 million subscribers to get more attention to it, because your weekly Store upload already surpassed that by a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But the question is this the same content that people who follow Store want?
Yeah, and so that's the question, is like, the fear that if they put something like this, is they gonna lose subscribers, or does that even matter? With
the amount of subscribers that they have, I think they've built and this is my just assumption, is they've realized that it's actually not even parkour that is what is people are necessarily subscribing for. It's for the store crew doing things together. That's what is the formula that makes Storer an interesting YouTube channel to watch. And so as soon as you take the characters out of it, I think it makes it less and I could be totally wrong. Maybe if they put Gatecrasher out as a as on their channel, then it would blow up and people would be like, whoa, this is so cool, like whatever. But yeah, it's a good question around that. But I do think that it almost doesn't really match the Storer brand to put other people's content out there. Sure. So, but it definitely makes sense for Point A because that's their whole shtick, is to tell stories. Or
I think from an organizational standpoint, this is maybe more of a Point A production, but I don't know the ins and outs of. Yeah, a lot of names, a lot of people involved in this.
Yeah, a lot of different people were involved, so I don't even know like to what degree Point A was involved. But.
Cool. Yeah. We've kind of gone on this negative slope. Yeah. Didn't mean to go that far. It's like it's a thing with the parkour projects, right? That I think has like yet to improve, and I think parkour has too much of a like positive feedback chamber where I know like a lot of these like opinions and viewpoints are happening in like private chats.
But that's
like
what we were talking about with Callum and Tom Taylor. It's like it's not that parkour is just always positive. It's just that all the negative feedback doesn't get said publicly.
Do you know when the negative feedback gets said publicly?
When?
SPO.
That's true. Yeah, we do get a lot of negative feedback.
But, poor us. Anyways. Overall, like if you haven't watched Gatecrasher yet, you definitely should, because the movement quality and I'm gonna say like the cinematography in it is some of the best I've seen in parkour. Couple points I was like critical on, but again, that I think our listeners on STS are definitely within the niche that will enjoy it start to finish. My criticisms are purely for like people outside the niche.
Yeah, well, I guess like, that's one of the things is when is parkour gonna try to make content for other people? Storer's been doing it for a while now. Yeah, but I feel like we need to get better as a culture of making content for outsiders.
Yeah, I mean. It's like yes and no, because like yes, we need to do that, and I guess I'll be like eating my words here, but also like if you look at a lot of like highly viewed skate content, it's still pretty much just geared towards like skaters, like not much, and you will say that like, or you could say that that's because the audience for skate is bigger, but I think it slowly got there. Just by making like pure skate content, so you could totally not.
I'm talking more about like long form stuff. Like for instance, Valley Uprising is a documentary about climbing culture and the development of climbing over the course of decades, and that is an incredibly interesting watch, even if you've never climbed.
Okay, so here's an example of when we're talking about success. Here's an example of success. If a streaming platform picks up a parkour long form piece.
Yeah, isn't Roof Culture Asia on a streaming platform?
I don't know.
I
think it's available for purchase, but I don't think it's the same as like Netflix, like, oh, we want this, or like Hulu or whatever.
That's but I think a Roof Culture Asia, another example of like something that actually did like it was made for parkour people, but it really like extended beyond that because it told a story and it was really exciting in various ways, and there was a lot of elements to it that's like, characters overcoming challenge.
I need to rewatch Roof Culture Asia.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years, but I from what I remember,
we should do a
you want to do a watch party? Yeah, let's do it. I'm game. And so I guess I want to see more parkour films that extend outside of the bubble of parkour, because we need both. Like, we need to, like, the culture, like the content for the culture, so to speak, but we also need to grow the culture.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to reach beyond the bounds of the bubble.
I think an interesting point for that is, I think point A is and I'll say Max Henry, is maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally, getting closer to that. I just don't know if the stories are always compelling enough is the problem. Because, like, you look at Queen City and it's like that, you know, that kind of hits as, like, someone who doesn't do parkour could watch this, but there's not really there's just not really a compelling story to Queen City.
Right.
Maybe a more compelling story is like Triple Threat, but then it kind of fizzles. You know, it's kind of like, and then he didn't win, and kind of left parkour, and, you know, this, like, he landed like the move at the end, which maybe you needed to highlight that more to make it. You know, it's like a good story always needs a climax, and probably the hardest part about making a documentary is sometimes you're making a documentary and you don't know if the thing that's supposed to happen is going to happen. Like, what's Alex Honnold's Free Solo? Yeah, like, what if he didn't climb the thing?
Yeah.
Or what if he climbed it and he, because it seemed like that was going to happen, he didn't call them and say he was going to do it that day, because that was like a part of the documentary is like they were like waiting for like the call, like he's gonna go do it. What if he just went out by his weird self and like did it like free solo, you know, like by himself, you know, because that's what he wanted to do, and part of the weirdness of it was like he agreed that he was going to be filmed, right?
Yeah.
So it's like there's so many documentaries that couldn't have happened, that may have not happened, because you have to, like, the documentary filmmaker has to invest in it, right?
And I mean, finding the right stories to tell, it's hard. Do we know when the Davis film is going to come out?
I don't feel good about that one. I'm going to say it right here.
Yeah.
Come at me, Davis. I don't care. Like, I don't feel good about it.
I'm hopeful.
He showed me some stuff that he wants to do, and I'm like, that's sick. And then like I don't know when it's gonna happen. Like, there's a thing in Boston. There's a jump in Boston he wants to do for it, and he told me this almost a year ago, and I don't believe it's happened yet. So
he doesn't live in Boston anymore.
I know, but it's like the opportunity for him to do it was that, like, when he was in for that trip.
He goes back enough.
Yeah.
He'll get it done or something. Maybe not. I don't know. It'd be cool to. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, more content that is like storytelling about parkour or parkour adjacent, you know, in a way that captures the interest of non-parkour people.
Yeah.
To grow the bubble. We want the bubble to be bigger.
Yeah, and the thing with, just going back to Gatecrasher again, I think the thing is, like, I came out of it thinking, like, wow, they had some really great material for a documentary. Too bad they didn't make this into a documentary. Oh, yeah. And I feel like they could, and it's the crazy thing about stuff like this is it's not too late. I don't think anyone would be mad about it, is like you could condense it for an action edit and re-release the action edit. You could extend it and call it a BTS documentary and get some interviews and stuff and a bit more storytelling and release it as that. And I think both of them would do pretty well. So, and I'm gonna say I'm not asking for that, but like I would be into seeing it. I'd be into seeing either version.
Yeah.
Come out in addition to.
I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah,
it was a fun watch to me, and I do maybe I'll give this video to homework to some girls in class to watch.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I think you bring up a good point, though. Is like, is it going to continue to capture their attention for 40 minutes? Do they have the attention span to actually sit down and watch? I don't know. Yeah,
it's like they already have to be like really bought in.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're already fans, if you already know who all the athletes are and you're already a fan, like phenomenal watch, right?
Yeah.
If if you don't know them, you're gonna have this up. Like again, that's the experience that I feel like Gloria had. When I watched it with her, is we get a lot of wows and a lot of like, why is it doing? Why are they going back to? Why do they keep doing this? Why isn't it just more of the action? So
I do find in general parkour has a problem with like B-roll, and that there's too much B-roll that's included in videos, even just like Instagram compilation B-roll that is just like out of context.
Yeah, it's an inside joke, and it's that's a big no-no for just content creation. Like, say I'm just like an entrepreneur and I'm making videos on how to groom yourself as a guy, and I like feel.
I watched that content.
That was a weird example to go into, but like if I did that,
I asked you about beard maintenance. I was like, I don't understand the beard thing. You know.
So let's say I do that, but then like let's say I have like some inside jokes. It is my job to constantly bring the new viewer into the joke.
Oh, that's true.
Because if I don't do that, and it's just like I'm just saying weird stuff all the time, my new viewers are like, I don't get this, and it's not for me.
That's true.
So like you can have inside jokes, but you kind of have to. You have to have a way of telling your new audience, people that don't know you, what the joke is.
Yeah. Or it needs to be easily understood, and I guess it's not an inside joke anymore. Yeah. It's just like a regular joke.
Yeah. It's like if we had an intro for STS every time.
Yeah.
That had like a joke.
Store, they have a lot of sayings like next to spate.
Yeah.
Or like Dick Cheney.
Yeah. But I think the thing about that, so Dick Cheney, they explain when they use it. Or they have. They have
explained it.
Next
I don't know
to
if they
spot,
always
there's
do.
No explanation, but it is just kind of funny. It's funny
it's
regardless.
It's not really an inside joke anymore.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a funny thing.
It's an inside joke. It remains funny as an inside joke, and it is instantly funny as a new joke.
As a new joke. Yeah. Anyway.
Comedy's hard.
Comedy is hard, yeah. Not for Storer. They got it. Yeah. They got it down.
Job
Callum.
best.
It's all Callum.
Yeah.
Give Callum the credit. He's the personality, the jokey personality. Great.
Long one, but we took a little break.
Yeah, we took a while to get this one out because things happened.
There was supposed to be an offshoot of STS that hasn't been released yet.
Yes,
on a higher platform, I guess.
Yeah. The crossover episode that everybody was hoping for.
It's coming up. It's
coming soon. It's coming soon. I was supposed to wear my other Storer shirt, but my daughter threw up all over it. So this one will suffice.
Yeah. The inside thing we're referring to is the Storer podcast.
Yes. Storer podcast.
The pleasure of sitting on the couch.
Yeah, it was really warm though.
Yeah, I was really trying to make it the longest episode ever, but
did we get it? Did we hit it?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I think the title still goes to Flynn Disney.
Well, it was a long episode, and so
could be.
But it was good. It was a good conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward.
I like the vibe. It's a different vibe than STS. I feel like STS is actually a little more buttoned up.
Is it?
Yeah. We were drinking beers on the store.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We did do the one episode, but I do feel like it's a little cheekier, a little more banter of a show.
That's
if
true.
You will.
That's true. You know what? I really liked the microphone.
Yeah. We'll get them one day.
Yeah. Like this is cool because I'm like I can
throw punches.
Yeah, I can't do that. I can't do that with one of those arm microphones. But I don't know, something about it makes me speak differently.
One thing. Thing I was very aware of is I could not get comfortable I was constantly changing positions. I was in a weird seat. I finally found it, but it took a while. Yeah,
It took a while.
yeah. So I wouldn't mind microphone if I was in a chair and there was a desk. Microphone on the couch, I like just kept sliding down and being like, oh yeah, get back up here.
Yeah, I kept looking over at Tom Taylor, and he looked actually the most uncomfortable. Like he was like awkwardly like laying back like this. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe he was comfortable. Maybe
Yeah.
he didn't really complain about it.
No.
It was just you, just you complaining.
Just me.
I was comfortable enough. Great.
All right.
Anyway, looking forward to that
Good
store
show.
episode coming out. This was a good conversation. We went long, so thanks for tuning in. If you liked it, please hit the like button because that means you liked it. And if you disliked it, go ahead and hit the dislike button. It's all the same.
And if you disagree with what I'm saying, please disagree with it. I'm always gonna say the truth on this show.
And nothing but the truth.
And I hope our viewers expect that.
Yes, that's right. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We're also on Spotify if you prefer listening to your podcasts there. And we actually hit 100 followers on Spotify.
That's a huge number.
That's a huge number.
100.
Yeah. Yeah.
100.
especially for not
100
being
of
on YouTube.
y'all. I'm in 100 years right now.
On Spotify.
100 sets of years on Spotify.
On Spotify.
Moving up in the world.
And this is primarily a YouTube show. Because
There you
people
go.
want to see us talking, not just listen, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Production improvements happening eventually. A lot of projects on the way. We do have it is the eventual plan though. But for now, we're in the corner of our weird office with a Johnny Taylor original.
Johnny Taylor original.
The Johnny Taylor original will stay.
At the how and the now. If you want to follow the artwork of Johnny Taylor.
Get some of this.
He actually taught us how to build parkour gyms.
It's true. It's very true.
He never built parkour gyms before, but he taught us how to build.
There is no origins without Johnny Taylor.
That's right. Okay, well, yeah. Thanks for the chat.
Good one.
All right.